Now, there's a third kind of attack that I like to do, and this is more close range, and it's an analogy I like to think of it in terms of a frog leap. This was fairly popular in the mid-'80s among some of the Japanese lightweights. And it's different than your typical drop step. And what you're going to do in this type of an attack is lower your level, but when I lower my level, you'll notice my weight is slightly forward. And that's how I always start most of my attacks. I'm exaggerating that to make the point. But before I actually do my drop step, I've lowered my level and I'm leaning forward so that when I feel like I'm falling, boom, that's when I begin my momentum. And I can adjust that quickly so that that's not a long period of time for me to prepare my attack. But when I prepare my double leg attack or any drop step coming in, I'm leaning my weight forward, and as soon as I feel this, my weight is forward of my foot and I have to pick that foot up, or else I'm going to fall down, that's when I initiate my attack. Boom. Why I'm doing that is, if you'll notice, if my partner is here, my opponent is here, as I lower my level, and as I start to lean into him, I'm starting to cut the distance already. It's not a lot, it's a little, and I'm not being very threatening because the movement is fairly subtle, as opposed to trying to come in and attacking with a big gross motor movement. That's more likely to be perceived and therefore defended. So I try to be sneaky when I begin my attack. I'm leaning forward, and as soon as I feel that balance breaking, with my front foot, that's when I begin my jab step. Boom. Prior to actually stepping, I want to bring my arms through. Boom. Now, similar to that kind of concept is this frog leaping type of attack that, again, was popular among some Japanese lightweights and Japanese freestyle wrestlers in the mid-'80s. Colby? This is a difficult concept at first, but even if you don't like this type of attack, the concept is important, I think, for the drop step. And if you can kind of combine some of the principles with this third attack, this frog leap type of an attack with the drop step, your drop step is going to be quicker. And it's going to be more powerful as well. Colby is going to line up here, and he's going to be a little bit more upright just for demonstration purposes. I'm going to keep my level low. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to lean slightly forward. And as I feel my balance break, as my weight gets over the fulcrum of my hips and I feel my posture such that I'm going to lose my balance, that's when I begin this attack, because I've already begun some momentum forward. I'm going to spring very hard with my legs. I'm going to make contact with my shoulders to his lower abdomen or belt line. It's important that I strike him with my shoulders prior to any legs hitting the ground. That's critical. Also critical is that I retract my legs. And one of the biggest mistakes people make as they try this type of technique is they leave their legs straggling behind, they become extended, they're in very poor position, and their attack is easily defended. So I lower my level. I'm going to move slightly forward prior to my preparation to attack. As I feel my balance break, my hands are going to come forward and my body is going to leap forward. You'll notice my momentum goes through my opponent. In fact, I'm almost tackling him from the perspective of, if my knees haven't hit the ground yet, his body is absorbing the entirety of my attack. Okay, all of my momentum. Again, I lower my level, okay, to prepare for my attack. Then, I'm going to lean forward. As I feel my balance break, my hands are going to come out. That helps begin my momentum increasing in speed towards him. And you watch my legs, they're going to spring in, but they're also, like a frog, retract. So here, I'm going to come in. Again, I lower my level, lean forward. I lower my level, I lean forward, and I'm going to thrust my arms out as I feel my balance breaking, and I'm going to spring into him. Here. Now, this is a mistake that I'm going to demonstrate that many people do when learning this technique. And that is, they tend to keep their feet out and back and don't retract them in quickly. It's critical when I spring in, I retract my legs so that I can keep a good frame and base immediately once I make contact with my opponent. This is the mistake that people typically make trying this. Lean forward here. When they come through, and if my legs are out, game over. If I'm extended, I'm in terrible position. So, when I attack, with this particular attack, as I'm launching in, and after I spring my legs out to begin my momentum in, they both come in quickly. So that when I make contact with my opponent, my feet are right close to his feet, such that then when I get up off my feet to get some push power, I can continue momentum through my opponent. Again, going forward so that he's going backwards. Once more, and I'm going to do it correctly this time. So I lower my level, I'm going to lean forward, and I spring it forward. Whenever you start an attack, it's important that you have 100% commitment. And this technique will help you with that, because you have to launch into him. If you don't catch up with them, and if you don't retract your feet, you are going to get squished to the mat. And so this, I think, is a good practice type technique to help you learn to really commit to attacking into your opponent with a lot of momentum and a lot of force. And even if you don't like this particular type of attack, you can combine that principle of springing in with your drop step, so that even though I may not spring in the same way, I'll launch off both feet at the same time, I think of my double leg attack as well as my drop step for an outside single. And again, we'll be going over these in more detail in future DVDs. But I think of it in terms of springing in. So when I lower in here, when I step, I'm not just thinking of a quick step. I'm almost trying to think of a springing kind of step, like in that last technique. So I lean forward a little bit here. When I step, I'm driving through. So I'm trying to do that same thing, leaning my weight slightly forward. When my balance begins to break, my hands come out, continuing my momentum forward. At that point, I'm past the center of gravity. My center of gravity is past my hips. I have to commit to launching in at that point. But I've already gotten a little closer to my opponent in a way, hopefully, that's fairly deceptive, because I haven't done a lot of real obvious movement. You can practice the frog leap type of attack against the banana bag as well as your drop step attack. And again, by having your partner hold the bag, instead of 1, 2 when I step in, it's just going to be a launch as I go in. It is so critical on this technique to lower your level, though, and that's very, very, very important to remember that. So I'm going to lower my level, I lean forward. I lower my level, I lean forward, and as I feel that breaking, oh, I just pop in. I lean forward. Another drill that will help develop a sense of being able to drive through your opponent is a drill where we put our hands behind our back and we practice shooting in on each other so that I can't focus on grabbing. When I grab, I have confidence that I can kind of maintain a frame here. Whereas if my hands are out of the picture, I have to be pushing into him to maintain my posture. So, in this drill, I'm going to lower my level, and when I attack with the drop step, I want to push into him, and I want to keep pushing into him so that I can get all the way back up on my feet. And that tells me I've maintained good contact the whole time that I've continued to push in with my momentum. So I lower my level, and I attack in. Now, another thing I think that helps with is because I can't grab onto my opponent, it really forces me to try to get this rear foot up as quickly as possible. And I think that drill helps facilitate that type of a concept or notion.